Hello there, very good evening and welcome to Government in Transition. I'm your host, Ed Layne, and I'm joined this evening by Priya Manichan, the former Minister under the People's Progressive Party Civic. Priya, I feel as though I keep saying this every time you come on, I keep saying former Minister. All right, Priya Manichan, former Minister, and Joe, the same thing for you, former Member of Parliament and of course, candidate of the People's Progressive Party.
Hi, Andy. Good night. Priya, good night. Viewers, good night.
Well, good night to everybody. Thank you for having us, Eddie.
All right. New hairstyle, Priya. Looks good.
Thanks.
I want the people to see that you've changed the hairstyle before they're distracted throughout the program. All right. So we're here again tonight to continue to update the public on what has been happening. Of course, today, the Caribbean Court of Justice would have heard arguments regarding the appeal filed by Dr. Jagdeo and Dr. Ali. And of course, on the other side of things, you have had changing positions as usual, lies, misinformation being peddled by the desperate coalition. So I wanna start from the position, Joe, of Granger himself. We have had some preliminary discussions about his radio program with Mark Benchcomp. He made certain pronouncements there, and I understand he spoke with the media this morning, and again, his position would have changed. Let us start from that perspective.
You will note, as you just said, Eddie, today, David Granger said that he never claimed victory. He never claimed that he won these elections, but we can go back, way back to the 5th of March at Lamaha Street, on the 10th there, when he and his cabal was depending on Mingo to deliver the elections for them via his fraud. We have pictorial evidence where Granger is saying to his supporters that we put in all the good work, all the hard work, he said, and the people of Guyana, they have accepted our plans and our programs, and they have voted us in. Basically, he said he won these elections. Also, you have pictorial evidence with Granger saying to his supporters during the same period and time that by the end of the day, which is the following day, your president would have been sworn in. So, since March, when he was depending on Mingo, not the people of Guyana, he has indicated that he won the elections. Nagamutu, during that period, also said via his nonsensical writing in the Chronicle that they won the elections by some 7,000 votes. Comrade Ramjatan also said the same thing, and I'm going back March to come forward. And during the recount period, Harman and Patterson and all the other cabal members, they said that they won the elections. As I understand it, based on what I read, just Saturday or Sunday night, Granger on bench cup, based on what he said, implied that he won the elections, because he went on to say that it's not by a landslide. So just a couple days before, he says that he won the elections, and all their leaders have been saying. We saw Valda Lawrence invoking the Almighty and Jesus and everybody and all the prophets in tears, saying that they won the elections. And so now he comes today, I suspect, on the sidelines of the commissioning of the now acting brigadier, the now acting chief of staff, Mr. Best. He now says that I never said I won, neither have I ever said I lost. I mean, basically, on bench cup, he was saying, I am depending on Lowenfield fiction to have me win these elections, because he never spoke to the CARICOM report that indicated and recommended that the tabulation and the results of the recount must be used as the basis for the declaration. He was speaking about Lowenfield report that he submitted. And even if we go back to the first report that Lowenfield submitted, even though Lowenfield submitted that report showing the PPP1 in his statistical fiction, Granger also had held on to that. At that time, Lowenfield was giving Granger 2/3 majority in the National Assembly. And therefore, it depends on what time of the day it is and what has happened in the 24 hours. That is how Granger speaks to the Guyanese people. But the long and short of all of that is that what it suggests that he's untrustworthy, and he's a man who is devious and filled with deceit. And the Guyanese people must not at all take his words seriously as we go into this process.
But before I bring in Priya, and you just spoke to maybe Granger and Nagamoto to some extent, and just last week, I think they were driving around Georgetown on those canters. I think they were in Berbice. They sent Patterson, your very good friend, David Patterson, to Essequibo, and they were fanning out across the country using the Mingo numbers to tell people, hey, we won the elections, you know, and then just today, you're seeing a different position from Granger himself. I'm going to bring you in here, Priya.
Yeah, you know, Eddie, Mr. Granger is schizophrenic personality. He says one thing one time, he says something else another time. He does this in plain view of not only Guyana, but the entire world on the World Wide Web. He seems to have multiple personalities. The problem with that is we have a citizenry and we have voters and an electorate who expect that they can rely on their president to at least tell the truth. What has he said? He said they won the election. Their statements of poll show him. Up to 2 Sundays ago when he did that press event with his select members of the press at State House, he said that he had not seen the statements of poll himself, but that he relied and he believed in the accuracy of the numbers used by Mr. Mingo. Those numbers have since been shown to be completely fictitious, not because we have said they're fictitious, but because the contents of the ballot boxes have shown that Mr. Mingo made up numbers and called them out. Mr. Granger also said he won the recount, and he won the recount based on what Mr. Lowenfield gave as numbers. That is when Mr. Lowenfield removed 285,000 votes. Again, he says he won the recount when Mr. Lowenfield removed 115,000 votes. Mr. Granger is what people trained in the profession would call a schizophrenic. He says one thing one time, he says something else another time. He expects us all to believe him. We don't. And so what we have is a man who cannot be trusted in relation to what he's going to say, what we know for sure, what he now says. And it should be a matter of concern to everybody in this country, everybody in the world, that President Granger would seek to speak only to one person, Mark Benchcop. Mark is a nice guy, whatever. He's a journalist, he's a reporter, he has his radio program, and nobody's saying that Granger shouldn't speak to him. But for Granger to be speaking to him alone is a cause for concern. And it really tells you that he has no intention of being interrogated. He has no intention of being questioned. His views and positions cannot be examined properly because Mark Benchcop is a yes man. He's going to say, yes, Mr. President, of course you won the election. Nobody gets to ask him hard questions like, but how do you explain Mr. Lowenfield erasing 285,000 votes last week, saying that those votes are invalidated because they weren't properly executed? And this week he changes it to 150. Nobody gets to ask Mr. Granger these questions, and he himself does not offer any kinds of explanations that are credible. So where are we? We're at a place where Granger now says that he will comply with the position of GCOM. He will abide by the decision of GCOM. But in that is part of his schizophrenia. He's not talking about a GCOM where the commission, the election, the chairperson and her commissioners already made a decision. And that decision is that we are going to use the votes from the recount, the total number of votes from the recount, because we do not have the ability, the mandate, jurisdiction to inquire into those votes, to determine which votes are valid and which votes are not. So Mr. Granger, when he says that he's going to rely on GCOM, he's not talking about the position of the Guyana Elections Commission, which is very clear that the valid votes in the Guyana 2020 election amount to 460,000 and some votes. He's talking about relying on a man named Mr. Lowenfield. Now, Keith Lowenfield has, like I said last week, he erased 285,000 votes. This week, he erases 115,000 votes. He does not bother to offer the nation, the voters, the political parties, any of the stakeholders, any explanation about why he's removing and erasing their vote, what method he used to do that, how it is he arrived at the various numbers that he then allocated to the various parties. So Mr. Granger, when he says he's going to rely on GCOM, he's really talking about relying on a vagabond, a thief, a person who has shown very clearly that he has zero integrity and cannot be relied upon. That is, Mr. Lowenfield cannot be relied upon to do a professional, fair, non-partisan job. So Mr. Granger has another thought coming. If he believes that he's going to instruct Mr. Lowenfield and or bribe him and or threaten him and get Mr. Lowenfield to declare numbers that shows Mr. Granger winning the election, when that is not what the people of Guyana offered to Mr. Granger. So that's where we are today. It's going to be interesting to see how that works out. We know already what the GCOM chair and commission has said and which votes they're going to be using, and that will not be changing. We agree with Mr. Granger. We agree with Mr. Granger that the position of GCOM is going to be the position that prevails in terms of who the declaration made and who is sworn in based on that position.
But what is the issue that you have here, and I think you alluded to it, why you have to be careful of what Granger says, because he keeps saying that he's going to, GCOM has to bring this process to an end, and that he's going to respect the decision of GCOM. But at the same time, while he's saying that, and you alluded to it, Priya, that he's also endorsing the numbers of Lowenfield. And he also endorsed the numbers of Mingo at that time, because he was the one at the time, like you said, at the Ministry of Happiness, as we call it, at Lamaha Street, celebrating, and to say by what, by sunset or sunrise tomorrow or something like that, your president will be sworn in. So he has been endorsing numbers all along. So you cannot trust what Mr. Ranger says when he say, you know, I'm going to respect the decision of GCOM. This is the same guy who said in December 2018 that I'm going to respect the no confidence motion. Then he said, I'll respect the ruling of the court. You know, so it is difficult to trust, Joe.
No. They also, Priya mentioned when he spoke to the media 2 Sundays ago or whenever, at that time the Lowenfield fiction was before the commission, even though the Court of Appeal had granted a 3-day stay, Lowenfield still presented that fiction. And Granger was up all over in complimenting that. You put that as against the fact that he requested the chair of CARICOM to have CARICOM intervene in certifying and verifying the recount. But yet, he makes no mention with this same enthusiasm about the CARICOM report, like he made about Lowenfield report that he had before the chair and the commission. And basically, the point you raised not so long ago, Eddie, where he authorized his cabal and all the utensils to go out there and share flyers and to mobilize their supporters around the country. I mean, the people didn't take them on, but the point is, the strategy was to go out there and mobilize people, informing them about our victory based on the Lowenfield report that cast aside 115,000 votes. That is what they were doing with their music boxes and whatever last week, celebrating victory and even assigning a date when Granger is going to be sworn in for a second time. Nagamutu was on radio and television saying the same thing about Granger's second term. You have just a couple days ago, all the mayors that are PNC mayors assembled, and they have suggested and they have called on whoever, I don't know who they were calling on. Apparently there is this view that Granger could be sworn in at Congress Place, or they could go and call a big jam session at Durban Park, and they, the PNC up NOAC, they can swear Granger in, because the mayors 2 days ago, they have called on whoever to swear in the Granger even before a declaration. They want him to be sworn in. So madness has taken over the place, but it's dangerous madness, because what it has done over the last period, the last week or so, is try to mobilize people and to hype them up, to be let down. Because at the end of the day, we are confident and we know, and the chairperson of GCOM has already alerted the nation as to what she will declare. She was clear on the letter she wrote Lowenfield, that you must bring a report based on the tabulation and the results from the recount. And so that recount shows that the People's Progressive Party Civic won these elections. Of course, we knew that since the 3rd of March. And it was validated by the CARICOM team that indicated this is the basis for the declaration of the results of the March 2nd, 2020 election. I am told Granger, when he spoke on Bench Cup, he was more concerned but about the recount. He was speaking about the recommendations made by CARICOM team about the reconstitution, the reconfiguring of the Guyana Elections Commission going forward. And we have already, the People's Progressive Party Civic, we have already committed ourselves to that. So that is nothing new for us. But Granger didn't speak to the results of the recount. The same way how we spoke with enthusiasm about Lowenfield fiction that he took before the Elections Commission. Importantly, Eddie, following the CCJ matter today, all the lawyers representing the cabal, all of them, they were pellucid in saying that they're not coming to the CCJ to say that the Court of Appeal indicated or advised or instructed what valid votes are. They ran away from that. But as we know, Lowenfield used that as the basis for the discarding of 115,000 votes. But today, when that was brought up, all the lawyers for the cabal, they said, no. We have not come to this court to say that, that the Court of Appeal advised or instructed or indicated in any way or form what valid votes should be.
Joe, the fact of the matter is, though, I think we've moved beyond this whole argument, or we should move beyond this whole argument of Lowenfield can write what he wants to write. You know, he can write whatever he wants to write. The fact of the matter is the commission has already made a decision. They have made a decision, and since what, the 16th of last month, they instructed Lowenfield what to do. That is to present the numbers generated from the recount exercise, or the numbers extracted from those 10 certificates of recount. So Lowenfield, he can have an opinion, but he can keep that opinion and share it. And I think we've been saying repeatedly, his opinion can be very, very useful if he so desire for the elections petition that the AP and UFC could bring after the president is, the declaration is made and the president is sworn in. Priya, we keep going, let Lowenfield write what he wants to write.
You see, that the problem is, it comes back down to this. Mr. Lowenfield is a person. If anybody, whether his name is Joe Hamilton or Priya Manikchan or Eddie Layne or Lowenfield or Valda Lawrence, sits in the office of the chief election officer and could by themselves decide which vote to take away, which vote to erase, which vote to throw away, and of the remaining votes, how much to give to the APNU and how much to give to the PNC and how much to give to the PPP, then it doesn't make sense for us to have an election. We must just say that the CEO, whoever he or she may be, is going to get to decide who will be the executive arm of government and who is going to, in a large measure, be the legislative arm of government, except that's not the law. What we go to elections for is so that ordinary people, Champawati selling mango in the Lusignan market, and Mother Teresa selling, or Mother Mary selling coconuts at Border Market, and Farmer John in West Berbice, and Fisherman Joe at Unity, and the people in Maruka, and the people in Region 9, people all over this country get to speak on election day about what they want for their life, for what they want for their children, what they want for their community, what they want for their country. And the way they speak is through a ballot. They mark an X on a ballot paper about what it is they want. And that is what we must count and give effect to. So it's not a Lowenfield or a Joe Hamilton who sits in the office of the CEO who gets to decide what happens with an election. It is those ordinary people across this country. For me, I find Mr. Lowenfield a very brave man. He is a very brave man because he is facing some serious problems criminally. And I don't know who is telling Mr. Lowenfield that he will get off. But Mr. Lowenfield should say to them, if you think I will get off, come and join me. The thing inside the state, it did not say Desmond Morian versus David Granger. It did not say Desmond Morian versus Valda Lawrence. It did not say Desmond Morian versus Roycedale Ford. It did not say Desmond Morian versus Sandra Granger. It said Desmond Morian versus Keith Lowenfield. That is who the criminal charges were brought against. And Mr. Lowenfield is facing some serious jail time once he's found guilty. We're not going to do. Nobody in this country is going to advocate that we just lynch Mr. Lowenfield. He will get his day in court. He will be heard. He will get a chance to be heard. He will get a chance to present a defense. But the problem is Mr. Lowenfield has 10 numbers on 10 certificates that were published for the world on the World Wide Web to see. And Mr. Lowenfield presented on the World Wide Web numbers that he raised 115,000 of those one time, and then numbers that he raised 285,000 of those one time. So it's not as though he's not going to get a chance to be heard, but I can't imagine what he's going to say that is going to get him out of trouble. And I think, today the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said very clearly, we've gone past, we're asking Guyana to do the right thing. We're asking the commissioners to do the right thing. We're asking the authorities to do the right thing. He's gone past that. He says, look, it's 4 months. It's 4 months since this is happening. We must bring an end to it. And I have instructed my officers at the State Department to hold accountable anyone who is interfering with the conclusion of the electoral process.
We should play this video before you go on.
Please, so if you have it.
Yes. For those who may not have seen the video.
In contrast, it's now been 4 months since Guyana's election long past due for a peaceful transition of power. CARICOM and the OAS have certified the recount results. You should get on with it. I've instructed my department to ensure those who undermine Guyana's democracy are held accountable. Also today.
So there you have it.
You should play that again, by the way. It was very low.
Since the people of Guyana went to the polls.
All right, let me get that one more time so I can play it one more time for you, so that our viewers can have a chance to look.
In contrast, it's now been 4 months since Guyana's election long past due for a peaceful transition of power. CARICOM and the OAS have certified the recount results. You should get on with it. I've instructed my department to ensure those who undermine Guyana's democracy are held accountable. Also,
there you go. He has instructed his State Department officers to hold accountable anyone who continues to undermine democracy in Guyana. And to hold elections hostage is to undermine democracy. And people are not mincing words. We're not being diplomatic and so on anymore. This is what's happening now. Mr. Lowenfield and Ms. Roxanne Myers and the other people in the GCOM who want to place themselves in that position while their political bosses are prancing around, enjoying the benefits of state that they're not entitled to, but they're enjoying it. I don't know if they want to do that to themselves. They would have to decide.
Today, Eddie, also during the same CCJ matter, Justice Witt was taken aback when some of the lawyers were speaking about what the CEO has done. And he asked the question, has anyone brought any matter, anyone has taken any matter to the court to deal with the CEO? Because he was shocked that a chief elections officer can be doing all these things illegally, so that the lawyers, they were saying that he has done. And I think Ram Karan was on the floor at that time, and he indicated that this morning he read about 2 private criminal charges brought against Lowenfield. But Justice Witt was also speaking about civil matters against this chief elections officer. And because it is alarming to people. And if you recall, way back then, I think it was Owen Otter and even Mayor Motley speaking to the fact of what these electoral officers. I think Motley had some harsh comments because at that time we didn't reach Lowenfield and his fraud. At the time when the CARICOM intervened, we had Mingo and his fraud. And she made the point about this one man and several of the CARICOM leaders made the point. Now we're at Lowenfield, who believe that he has some authority that he don't have, that he could, instruct this autonomous constitutional agency. That is what he's attempting to do, apparently, to say to them that these are the votes that you must take and accept and take it or leave it. And the leadership of the APNU, the cabal, have been saying the same thing, that for them, whatever advice, as the statute says, they see it in the form of whatever Lowenfield put before the commission, they have to accept it. It could be ludicrous, it could be wrong, it could be falsifying information like he has done. That is what the cabal was saying. But with the same breath, Vincent Alexander is on record of saying, listen, a former chief elections officer put numbers before us, and when we did the calculation, the numbers were not in sync with what it should be. And he was instructed to return and correct it. So they apparently want to have it both ways. Before Lowenfield, the Elections Commission, they have the authority to instruct the CEO to correct it. But now, with their conspirator and rigor, the Elections Commission suddenly don't have and shouldn't have the authority. Granger himself has said that basically whatever Lowenfield takes to the commission, they have to accept and make a declaration based on that, even though what he is saying is not grounded in any law. But the point is, it is now attempting to say, we didn't get past the PVP, and we weren't able to have Mingo rig the elections for us, even though we have had this recount. we are going to seek to attempt to have Lowenfield rig these elections for us and try to give the impression that GCOM, the chair and the commission, they have to accept and make this declaration, which is nonsense.
Eddie,
Which is total nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
go
just
ahead.
want to pose a quick question. Do we genuinely believe, us, your lookers, your watchers, the participants in this program, do we believe that Mr. Mingo, Pastor Mingo from Region 5, who worked in Region 5 for all the other elections, who was all of a sudden brought to Region 4, he woke up one day and decided, you know what, I'm going to rig these elections. I can throw away the real SOPs and I'm just going to give the APNU numbers. You think he did that alone? So that's a question. Secondly, you think Mr. Keith Lowenfield, retired captain, I believe, or major in the army, big man, ageable fellow, woke up and just decided, you know what, I am going to throw away 285,000 votes. And then when it looks really bad, because that means I'm giving the AP and your 2/3 majority, something even Burnham never used to do, I'm going to bring back in some of those votes and throw away 115,000 of those votes. And then I'm going to award 33 seats to the APNU and 31 seats to the PPP and 1 seat to the joiner parties. You think he's doing this alone? You think he's doing this by himself? You think he's doing this for himself? This is all part of a plan to rig the election. It is all part of a plan to make sure the will of the people does not see the light of day, and it is not going to be tolerated, not in 2020, Guyana. And it's not a PPP saying that, and it's not the small party saying that. The people of Guyana are saying not in 2020, and the courts are saying not in 2020, and the world is saying not in 2020.
But that's the point. I've always made that point, both Pri and Joe, that sometimes when you listen to David Granger, you know, as though this man is totally unaware of what is happening.
That's why he was called a sanctimonious gangster.
Gangster. Because he always operates as though he don't know what is going on. And the fact that he decided 2 nights ago, I think, to come out and say, hey, what Lowenfield did, those numbers, I agree with that. Because Lowenfield is executing a plan that was hatched at Congress Place, where David Granger seems to be the intellectual author. So I agree with you. Lowenfield he has to face the consequences of his actions, because those are his actions. But I agree with you that Lowenfield didn't get up and decide he's going to do that.
You know, Eddie, if you're a fan of, and Priya and many of the viewers, if you're a fan of these mafia movies, you would see how the mafia dons they operate. There would normally be a church baptizing their grandchild. And whilst that is happening, dozens of people are being killed, you know, based on their instructions. And that is what you have here happening. I mean, there is no killing, but what is happening and playing out, the strategy to go out there and seek to rile up people last week, they're finding out around the country. Really, you think that can happen without the leader of the People's National Congress, one Mr. Granger, not instructing them to do that?
Joe, before you go on, this man put Joe Harmon, Nagamutu, and all the others to cost the regional leaders and cost the international community. And what he came out and he did, the regional leaders are my friends, and I will not say anything bad about them. And then he released a statement to say how strong is the U.S. and Guyana relations.
After Nagamutu cars. That's the point I'm making to you. That's the point I'm making to you. That is how leading gangsters operate. Head of crime boss, the crime bosses of family. Where they are sanctimonious, the point I'm making. They're staunch religious people. They're family oriented. They care a lot about family and grandchildren and all that kind of thing. But behind all of that is criminality and gangsterism. And that is what this Granger is saying. And importantly, they always have in their corner a similar type, better half. And I always make the point, in all the brutality and killing of people by Ferdinand Marcos, he had his Imelda. What's his name? Take the people to starvation from a country that was producing and exporting wheat to whereby they can't feed themselves. Mugabe, he had his grace at the side of him. And so that is how they function. Importantly, Granger was asked a question about the comments of his son-in-law. He said he had no comment to make. If his son-in-law, in his public comments, had supported him, I'm sure he would have had a lot to say, piggybacking on those comments. But the comments that are against him. Now, an important thing he said also today, Eddie, Priya, and viewers. He said he had a difficulty with Sharma as a member of the coalition who didn't sought approval from him. Did you follow this? Said yes. Then he said that as chairman of the coalition, he had a difficulty with the fact that his position is all the parties in the coalition, in 2020, July, this man is saying that all the parties, even though they're individual parties in their own right, all of them to make public statements that might be not in sync with him and the coalition, they should seek approval from him, the chairman, before they do that. And now you could understand why Nagamutu goes down the road supporting Granger, and you could understand why the leadership of AFC, they have great difficulty in calling a spade, because they apparently might have sought approval and they didn't get the approval from the sanctimonious gangster, because he's saying, if they get approval from me to speak, they can't speak on these matters.
See, again, that's schizophrenic Granger, because for the last 5 years, he's spent a lot of time boasting about how this is a coalition of parties. This is a unity government. It's the first time in the history of Guyana we have 6 political parties together. And when we put out policies, we have to hear from all of them. So he gave the impression all along that this was a consultative, I mean, we knew differently, but this was a consultative coalition, and they were doing what they each individually believed they wanted to do as this group. I do not believe that is why Mr. Nagamutu is doing as he is doing, or Comrade Ramjatan. I think they're greedy for power. They are people who see themselves, these are old men. They have no useful place in this country after now. Mr. Nagamutu is, look, listen, Mr. Nagamutu was not the prime ministerial candidate. Mr. Nagamutu, even if the APNU AFC miraculously had won the election, would have had to vacate the PM's residence. Mr. Nagamutu is still squatting there. So Mr. Nagamutu cannot use Granger as an excuse, Granger's schizophrenia as an excuse. Nagamutu himself is a vagabond. Nagamutu wants the APNU AFC to hold on to power illegally and in defiance of the will of the people, because that is how he will get some of the gravy. Mr. Ramjatan specifically said to his staff, which is recorded, and he has not refuted that recording, that the PPPC Sorry?
He confirmed it subsequently.
He confirmed it subsequently that the People's Progressive Party had won the election by, in his words, some 15,000 votes. Yet Mr. Ramjatan believes that somehow or the other, Mr. Lowenfield's report can be used so that they can be sworn in on a technicality. That's not Granger telling them that. They're all a bunch of thieves and vagabonds. These are people who have no regard for democracy, who have no respect for democratic principles. These are the same people who defended Granger when he unilaterally appointed Patterson, throwing away 25 years of democratic practice in this country. So this was a bunch of people, birds of a feather flocking together. You know that thing? So nobody in there was telling anybody else. And that's why they lost. Nobody in there was saying to each other, man, we promised people we would come in here and do this, and we're doing the opposite. We promised the sugar workers a 20% increase. Instead, we have fired 7,000 of them. We promised the soldiers 50% increase. Instead, we've taken away their bonus. We promised the teacher a healthy increase. Instead, we have them marching in the hot sun, even to get an appointment with us. We promised that we are going to reduce taxes, yet we have put 200 new taxes, 200 new items have taxes. We promised to reduce electricity and water, yet we've placed VAT on them. Nobody was saying that amongst each other. All they were doing was drawing down the salary, drawing down the perks, going on trips with their spouses and children and family, removed any sort of accountability when they go on those trips, so they don't have to account for the money when they come back. They were just enjoying themselves in there. And that is why they lost the election, because people want, you know, Joe, I'm sure you know more than me. The PPP is a big thing, and the PNC is a big thing, and the APNU is a big thing. But the ordinary man wants to see his life get better. He wants to know that he could carry his children to a movie at Giftland Mall or to the movie town. He wants to know that Easter time he could buy his children a kite and an extra one. He wants to know that MASH time he could take his kids out to see some shows. He wants to know he could pay for some extra lessons for his children. He can afford the internet and so on. When those things start clamping down, when people can't even put lunch in their children's lunch kits, which is what happened. We heard when we went to Ituni. We heard about how people who had traditionally voted for the PNC felt that they could not and would not, and went on camera to say, we will not be giving them their votes because I can't send my children to school. That was Saturday. School was reopening on Monday. I can't send my kids to school on Monday. We know that 7,000 sugar workers were fired. We're not suspecting, we're not averaging. 7,000 sugar workers were fired. Their severance pay kept from them. This is what people felt, and this is how people voted. And that is part of why Mr. Granger is going to be saying goodbye to the presidency very, very shortly.
But what is sad in all of this? What is sad that a small group of maybe 30, used to be like 40, 50, I think it's down to about 30 or so now, that they can go the length to hold on to power and can put an entire country. Because the bottom line of this, while Mr. Pompeo said individuals, we look right over to Venezuela and we see the impact. People trying to hold on to power have on a country by itself. And it is really, really sad that we have a bunch of people who went into power in 2015 on good terms, quote unquote. You know, a lot of Guyanese, when you listen to them during that period, they were talking about how they were looking forward to this new dispensation, if you want to call it, of this group of parties. As much as I believe it's the AFC and APNU plus 4 persons, they still had 6 names that they were going with. I never see the members of the Scots party, nor the guy from the Rupununi. I can't remember his name. The Minister of Armenian Affairs. The point I'm making is that they had this window dressing of 6 parties going into government And a lot of people that you talk with were looking forward for them to transform Guyana. You know, they did, but not in a good sense.
Not in a positive way, in a negative way.
Exactly, but the point I'm making is that this group of people who made all those promises, who people were looking up to, are willing, just for the sake of power, to put our country in a position where we can be heard internationally. Matter of fact, we're already heard internationally, because they have been for the past couple of weeks cussing every Tom, Dick, and Harry around the world because they say to them that you lost the elections and you need to go. You know, and this word concede seems to tip them off. From the time they hear concede, you hear Nagamutu cussing, Granger, Granger, he don't curse, he just send them as you nicely put it. And you hear Lampi and Pampi cussing. The thing is, they are willing, for the sake of power, for the sake of maybe covering their corrupt practices over the last 5 years, to put an entire nation at risk.
Importantly, Eddie, in Pompeo presentation, he spoke about both Suriname and Guyana. And when the U.S. Secretary of State would be complimenting Bautista because of him conceding and a smooth transition, and 120 days, 4 months after this sanctimonious gangster got this country in a flux, it shows who Granger really is. Because Bautista, he has his reputation over the last 4 decades. And when we reach the place today where Bautista, people are hailing him up for being decent and being able to put country first, you could understand what Granger really is. Because 4 months, Eddie, look what we in government could have already done. It's over 100 days, 120 days or thereabout. Look what benefits would have already gone to the people of Guyana based on the commitment we made to them. More so in this period when they need all the help they can get with the public health pandemic upon us. But this bunch, led by David Granger, they have created the conditions whereby the country cannot move forward, whereby the country cannot earn, whereby the country cannot be developed, whereby businesses are stalled, whereby external agencies and multinational corporations have not and will not come to Guyana because of this condition that we're in.
And Eddie, you know what is bizarre to me is why they would do this. This is, I mean, look, people go to elections all the time. You win, you lose, get out of office. By now, 3 months in, the AP and UAFC could have been seriously criticizing the PPP government because of various policies. 100 days would have passed. They would have been able to assess what we did in that 100-day period. They could have readjusted themselves immediately so that they're contesting the 2025 election from day one on March 6th when they went into opposition. That's where we could have been. There is no shame in losing an election. And it's not even in losing the election. It gives parties a chance to renew. Look at what Barra Jagdeo did as the General Secretary of the PPP. Almost from the moment we went into opposition, we had a little bit of a period where we said we weren't going into Parliament, and then we went into Parliament. And look at what we did. We ran the country from the seats of the opposition, from the benches of the opposition. We pointed out for the people of Guyana and to the people of Guyana every single time a new tax was raised. We pointed out and helped them understand what it meant to their pocket. We screamed and shouted and insisted that there were changes when Mr. Granger tried to rig the election by appointing Patterson unilaterally. We insisted that they get out of office when the no confidence motion was passed. That's the kind of power you have in opposition. Look at what the PPP did with the position of opposition. So it's not a position that is impotent. It is impotent if the people are impotent in that position. But in this era, in this world, nobody is going to accept any longer what we saw in the 1980s. And that, I think, is part of the problem. What we have is a bunch of people who came from the 1980s, the Grangers and the Hamilton Greens and what's his wife wrote a letter the other day, Burnham's daughter, Van West Charles and Roxanne Burnham. And these people who are archaic, they're fossils. They belong to a totally different era. And, I don't think old people generally, and by old I mean aged people, are incapable of moving with the times. Some of the most agile people I know are people in their 80s who are right up there with new computer technology, who are right up there with new studies, who could tell us in the various ministries what we need to adjust, who could tell us in the various departments what we need to do. So not every old person. We have rice farmers in this Guyana who are moving with the times and who understand that no-tilling may be the new way to go instead of plowing, who understand that shying paddy through using an aircraft is less expensive. We have people who are old and agile, and we have people who are old and stuck in the past, especially where scampishness is concerned. And I think that's what they thought. They thought they were going to bring the rigging days of the past, where our steel is sharper than yours, and foist it on the people of Guyana. Well, this is a different set of people of Guyana. The young people, we saw people stand up. Mr. Granger talks about what happened on the 6th of March. And let me see. At no point in this country, in any part of the world, would I want to see violence meted out as a response to something that is unfair, something that is unjust, something that is unlawful. We have to manage that and make sure as far as we can it doesn't happen. But people didn't rise up on March 6th and start protesting and lighting fires because they felt like, or because on March 5th they had a dream. They rose up on March 6th because there was a real threat that their will would not be given effect to, that Mr. Granger and his party would steal the election, and they felt that they had to vigorously protest against that. I am not commenting on the propriety of that action. I'm saying that when Mr. Granger speaks about what happened on how his heart broke, I'm always amazed. His heart broke about what happened on March 6th. You caused the people to do what they did on March 6th. So if your heart broke, you should be on your knees asking for forgiveness, because he is the person and his party and his action and his instruction to Mingo and them that caused people to feel like they were going to be disenfranchised. And so what happened on March 6th is right at his doorstep.
I know we are almost out of time, and I wanted to go back briefly, and I wanted people to understand, because there is this perception in the heads of many that somehow, and this is because of the propaganda that is being fed to them by the coalition, that somehow the PPP wants Guyana to be sanctioned. No, the PPP don't want Guyana to be sanctioned. All that has to do with sanctions can be avoided quite easily. All it takes is for Granger and his cabal to do the right thing, and that is to accept the results that is widely accepted, that is accepted globally, basically at this point in time. But I want people to understand, and I encourage our viewers, Mojo and Priya, I'm encouraging our viewers to take some time. I know most of us have access to internet and smartphones and so on. Take some time and read what sanctions have been doing to our very neighbor Venezuela. To read. It may start hurting the elites and those who involve in suppressing democracy and thwarting the will of the people. but those things can have severe impact on a population itself, and we see what is happening in Venezuela. So even the supporters of AP and UAFC, I want to say to you, you need to just follow what is happening, and you need to say to your leaders, say to Mr. Granger and the others, that you've had enough. It is about time they do the right thing. I agree with you, Priya, that they could do what Barajagdio did in 2015, where he decided that the PPP is out of power and I'll do what it takes. Legally, I'll get on the ground, I'll find out my teams, and I'll talk with people, and I'll rebuild my party. And that is what he did with the support of the leaders. But I think Granger and his cabal recognize that they cannot win an election free and fair, no matter what they go and tell the people, because they failed the people for 5 years. The first 5 years in office, they emptied the treasury, and you went through the works, Priya. You outlined some of the things that they did. So this entire thing can end easily. Simple. Granger has to concede he lost the elections. I don't think the world is wrong. I don't think everybody else, only Granger and a few people in Congress Place, are the only ones who are seeing different numbers. So people need to understand, and I want to make the point to reiterate that the PPP has no interest in Guyana being sanctioned or anyone being sanctioned. But they say the way you make your bed, that is the way you will lay on it. And I think that is what Granger and the others are doing. Sadly, they seem to be trying to make the beds of Guyanese who don't support what they're doing. I give you both maybe 1 minute each to wrap things up. You're over time.
So let me just say quickly, why is it they can't, any of the IFIs, international financial institutions, why can't they give money to an unlawful government? Because that government is no longer accountable. They're not accountable. They stole an election. They're not going to account for how they spend the money. Those places give money so that people can benefit, lives can get improved, development can happen. The human development index will rise in that particular country. So that's why they wouldn't give money. They wouldn't give money because they're spiteful. They're not giving money because the legitimate government is not in place. Now, when that legitimate government not being in place does not get money, it filters down to the people. It means farmers can't get fertilizer cheaply. It means whatever the aid was for, better schools, better roads, improved electricity supply. So it's not as though we want to see sanctions. People are simply not going to give money to people who have stolen an election, because chances are very high they will also steal that money. That is simply what it is. If you're not accountable to your own people about their vote, how can you be accountable about money we either lend to you or grant to you for the development of your country? And countries around this world have dealt with dictatorships before, and they know that in those sorts of scenarios, money does not filter down to the people who need it most. And that's why money and other kinds of things that we call sanctions will happen. I don't care if people are personally sanctioned. In fact, I believe that civilized people, the civilized world, including those of us in Guyana, it should not be only foreign sanctions, should want nothing to do. The same way we are afraid of the person we know jumps in your yard and thieves your drinks bottles and thieves your clothes and digs your mirror out of your car, the side view car mirror. The same way we want nothing to do with those people. The same way we want nothing to do with the people who will jump in your house, break down your door and steal. It's the same way we should want nothing to do with election thieves. They must not be in polite society because they're not polite people. And so even in Guyana, we have to take a stand right here in Guyana, how we're going to treat with people like that. And I was very pleased to see that citizens, with the assistance of lawyers, have filed criminal proceedings against both Mr. Mingo as well as Mr. Lowenfield. That's what you do. In any other case, when somebody thieves something, that's what you do. So that's what's happening here. And certainly in the international community, nobody's going to want to have anything to do with people who have no regard for the will of the people they swore to serve. So Eddie, these things, the issue about sanctions are very real. Like I said, today we heard directly from the State Department through its Secretary of State, who said he's instructed his officers. He's gone past pleading and threatening in diplomatic language. He's instructed his officers to hold accountable anyone who continues to interfere with the democratic conclusion of the Guyana elections.
Joe, your final comments.
Well, the thing I'm picking up from where Priya ended. The State Department, the Secretary of State was clear that it's not counting of votes anymore. He was clear that a declaration must be made. And secondly, the declaration must be made based on the recount. He has said so, because he went further to say that the CARICOM team and the OAS observers that were there, they validated the numbers. And therefore, the expectation is a declaration. And that declaration is that the People's Progressive Party Civic won these elections with more than 15,000 votes than Granger and his party. That is what the declaration is. And for those who believe that there will be some other declaration, then some of the things Priya spoke about will fall into place. Because in times past, sanctions used to just be on the governmental people, who stole elections and in government. But decades now, they have extended it to every participant. That can include people in the media fraternity. That can include people in business. That can include people in the judiciary. That can include people at the level of the electoral body. That can include people in the disciplined forces and the military services. Anyone. It is not just governmental people. And they went further beyond that to extend it to affect your family. That is what sanctions is because the same people who steal elections, as Priya said, when they steal money, many of them, they don't transfer it and do transaction in their own name. They do it in the name of their spouse and their children and close relatives. And therefore, sanctions now extend to all of those people. So the net is as very wide as it can be. We will hope that APNU AFC and their collaborators are seeing the writing on the wall, and they will not seek to put up any more obstacles before the people of Guyana and the elections commissions to make their declaration, which I believe should come swiftly after this court ruling next Wednesday, 8th. That is our expectation, that the Guyana Elections Commission must swiftly make this declaration to bring an end to this agony and this travail that the Guyanese people have been going through, as Ram Karan told the court today. This torture that the Guyanese people have been going through must come to an end. And it must be the finality of it. And going forward, people who are involved in this conspiracy of electoral fraud, they must be dealt with condignly so that no other chief elections officer or deputy or a returning officer would ever be persuaded to seek to tamper with electoral results. That is what we have to do. We cannot let this pass after all of this is finished.
Joe, Priya, I want to thank you very much for joining me this evening, and to our viewers, we want to say thanks for being part of the program. We're going to be back here tomorrow evening, of course, to keep you updated as to what is happening in the country. Until then, We ask that you have a safe and productive evening into tomorrow.
Good night.
Aye. Good night, Eddie. Viewers, Priya,
You.
take care with the hairstyle, girl.